Hey guys, welcome back. Today I have one hell of a video for you. Today I've joined up once again with my boy Roanoke Gaming, my partner in Versus Crime, to tackle one of the most violent, high-intensity battles that I think we're ever gonna cover on this channel. The Master Chief, Spartan 117, versus the Doomslayer's former brothers in arms, now corrupted by the vile power of the Khan Maker, the Marauders. So this is a video that I know many of you have wanted to see me do, so, you know, if it lives up to expectations, then don't hesitate to show your support down below by liking, subscribing if you haven't already, and by giving me your predictions on who you think's gonna win down below in the comments. I really want to start branching out to cover Doom and also Resident Evil lore as well as Halo on this channel, so again, if that is something that you'd like to see thrown into the mix alongside Halo, of course, then let me know as well. So, without any further ado, let's kick off this battle of bio-augmented super strength versus divine undead power by setting the scene. How, and more so why, does the Master Chief find himself in a situation where he has to go face to face with a Marauder? Well, let's take a look. The year is 2552. Humanity defeated the Covenant with ease. They swatted them away like a fly. But a far larger threat has reared its ugly head. One that promises to end all human life as we know it, to sentence our souls to eternal damnation, tortured for eternity to generate argent energy. The armies of hell have arrived on Earth, and their invasion is in full demonic swing. The Master Chief is working with the Armed Response Coalition, also known as ARC, an arm of the UNSC that was formed to act as a global military crisis relief initiative and to essentially fight the armies of hell in a way that no conventional military ever could. And I mean, if any soldier's fit for that job, it's the Master Chief. The hell invasion of Earth has thus far been frighteningly successful. Entire countries are succumbing to the demonic presence in mere hours. But so far, one of the few countries that's managed to partially withstand their onslaught is the United States, which is extremely convenient considering that stored deep within one of the ARC complexes in the heart of the country is an AI that, should it be captured by the demons, would bring about a swift end to the human race. This artificial intelligence is none other than Mendicant Bias, an ancient foreigner machine that was retrieved by the UNSC from the ARC during their war with the Covenant. One that apparently wanted to seek atonement by aiding humanity, and so it was brought back to Earth to help humanity understand Argent energy, which would allow them to rebuild and expedite their technological advancements at least 10 times their predicted rates, if not more. Humanity's discovery and interaction with this AI was an absolute watershed moment in their history. However, one that comes with a cost. Because of Mendicant's vast knowledge and understanding of Argent energy, the demon's priority one is to capture it and take it back to hell, where it would be corrupted just as the Marauders were, forced to work with the armies of hell, and in doing so would cut off all sources of Argent energy from what remained of humanity. Now, considering that almost everything at humanity's disposal, from resources to weapons and even orbital platforms and capital ships, are powered by Argent, if Mendicant were to be captured and taken back to hell, it would absolutely cripple them, almost guaranteeing hell's victory and the end of the human race. And so, to prevent this from happening, the Master Chief is sent to the ARC complex where Mendicant Bias is stored to transfer its personality, knowledge, and essence from its housing into a data stream which is bound for the human capital ships in orbit, where it can be safely stored away from the grasp of the demons. As expected, Chief manages to slaughter his way through countless hordes of minor demons and ends up reaching the complex where he begins the transfer. However, mere seconds later, a level 5 demon threat portal opens, and out walks a Marauder, sent personally by the Khan Maker to capture Mendicant Bias. Chief must protect the data transfer, or humanity will almost certainly perish, but the Marauder was sent here with orders given directly by the Khan Maker herself. Failure is not an option. And so, our fight begins. However, before we can accurately predict who would reign victorious, we first need to look at the strengths and weaknesses of both contenders. So I'm going to start by taking a look at Chief's strengths, and then Roanoke is going to take us through the Marauder's strengths, and then we're going to do the same thing for both contenders' weaknesses, and then it's fight time. So, Chief's strengths. Where the hell do we begin? Augmentations. Let's start there. So, as a Spartan 2, Chief, John, underwent a number of biochemical augmentations that strengthened his body and mind in almost every way imaginable, so let's cover a few of those first and the upper hand that they would give him. Surgery is performed on the occipital lobe to redirect blood flow beneath the rods and cones in the eyes, which vastly improves visual perception. An advanced carbide ceramic material is grafted onto the skeleton, which creates virtually unbreakable bones. A platinum pellet is placed in the left thyroid gland, which contains a human growth hormone, rapidly boosting the growth of skeletal and muscular tissue. A protein is also injected into the muscles, which targets the molecular machinery within their cells and again vastly increases muscle strength, and also endurance as well. Bioelectric nerve transduction is also modified into shielded electronic transduction, which provides not only a 300% increase in reflexes, but also a massive increase in intelligence, memory, and creativity. Now, not only do these augmentations make Chief's body extremely strong, but the perception and reflex enhancements are so drastic, they give him an almost like supernatural ability known as Spartan Time, where his reflexes are so fast that he's able to think, see, and react in pretty much slow motion. But it only gets crazier. When Chief puts on his Mjolnir Mark 6 powered assault armor, these abilities are enhanced even further. The plating, built from titanium alloy, is almost entirely resistant to ballistics and covered in a refractive coating to help dissipate the heat from a plasma impact. And fully covering the armor are reverse-engineered energy shield systems, which add yet another layer of defense, particularly against ballistics, which can often get deflected by the shields back at the one who fired them. Beneath the armor plating is an undersuit, and beneath that undersuit is a skin suit, both of which are covered in a refractive coating which dissipate the heat from plasma impacts, and both of which are extremely strong, and then between both of them is a hydrostatic gel layer which offers protection against high velocity impacts and is even capable of locking the armor should an impact require it, to shield the limbs and joints from as much damage as possible. And then, between the undersuit and the armor plating is a reactive metal liquid crystal layer, which acts basically as like a synthetic muscle, improving Chief's strength by up to 5 times. In the incredibly rare occasion that Chief happens to get injured, then within the armor are automatic biofoam injectors, which provide on-the-go healing and pain suppression. But saying that, injuring someone as capable as 117 is next to impossible thanks to the further reflex and perception upgrades that his Mjolnir provides. Motion trackers provide constant 360-degree target detection. The heads-up display built into his helmet and visor give directional feedback should he be hit. Within his head is a neural implant which connects to the suit and essentially powers it with his brain. It sort of acts like a processor for the suit, but the processor is his brain, which removes any latency between thought and action. But most importantly, Chief has one thing that no other super soldier does. He has Cortana. I mean, the smartest AI in human history combined with superhuman reflexes and perception make Chief pretty much impossible to hit. But on the off chance he somehow does get hit, then it's by no means the end of the world. Auto repair systems in his armor can utilize nanomachines, everyone's favorite thing, to repair his suit on the fly, and bypass nodes allow power to be rerouted to avoid the damaged areas and ensure that the most important areas of his suit can function no matter what and no matter how much damage he undergoes. But we're not even done there. The argument could be made that Chief is the most proficient soldier in existence when it comes to firearms and just weapons in general, and on top of that, his immense strength allows him to dual-wield just about anything, something that, when combined with his perception and Cortana, allows him to fire at multiple targets at once with extreme accuracy. And then, on top of all of that, Chief has something that nobody else does: luck. When it comes to combat proficiency, the Master Chief is pretty much unparalleled, to be quite honest, the magnum opus of human technological and combat progress. And you know, his luck really just is the cherry on top. However, the fact that Chief possesses both inhuman strength and literal superhuman abilities by no means marks the end of this argument. So now, I'm going to hand you over to my boy Roanoke to take a look at the strengths of the Marauder.
There are certain strengths that the Marauder possesses that you may not actually be aware of, but due to clues within Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, we can make a few assumptions about the Marauder which will help us later. Now I do want to say, expect a much more comprehensive breakdown of the Marauder in a future video, but first things first when talking about the Marauder is we need to figure out what a Night Sentinel is. For those that play Doom Eternal, I don't need to tell you anything, but for those that haven't yet, a Night Sentinel is a species with a completely separate evolutionary path from humanity. They evolved on their own planet under their own conditions through the randomness that is life. Compare it to almost how the Sarans evolved on Sera in Gears of War. They look human, but they are technically not Homo sapiens. And due to this, the Night Sentinel possesses different attributes than humans do. One of those in particular being their brute strength. And how do I know that they have brute strength beyond that of a standard human? Well, let's take a trip back, shall we? So you're sitting there, and you would like to know, what does Vindication look like? In my Doomslayer vs. Chief episode, I mentioned that Doom Guy and the Doomslayer are the same person, and man, I got flame broiled in the comments by people saying, actually Roanoke, the Doomslayer is a betrayer, so he's a Night Sentinel, therefore he cannot be the Doom Guy. To which I implored everybody to read the lore closely, and you see that he got his suit from the betrayer. Sweet, sweet justice. So what are they to say now, huh? So there's a reason that I bring this up besides to gloat and add to my own credibility, and it's because the Doom Guy and Doomslayer being the same person, we can get a generalized idea of their strength concerning Night Sentinels. When Doom Guy was a human, or more human, and not just pure angry boy hours, he was actually much stronger than your average man too. After being ordered to fire upon civilians prior to the events of Doom, the Doom Marine fatally punches his commanding officer and is subsequently sent to Mars as a punishment. And this is key. While it's totally possible to punch someone's life out in one hit, it is extremely rare and based on hitting at the right place with the right set of circumstances. But it is implied that the Doom Marine quite literally hit him once in the head, and that was enough force imparted into his body, or into the commander's body, to instantly end him. Not to mention, while on Mars and its moons, and eventually Hell itself, Doom Guy is taking damage that should more than likely completely body him. On top of this, in certain instances, Doom Guy can actually punch out demons, bodying them in the process as well. So all this would imply that the Doom Guy is way stronger than a normal man, even when he is just a human, and well before he's blessed by the Seraphim, which is when he reaches unreal levels of strength. But prior to this blessing and after his time in Hell, he is transported to Argent D'Nur, where he is placed in the Colosseum. These Night Sentinels battle in the Colosseum for the chance to regain their honor and be sent to the front lines after committing some crime against their laws. And this is where we get a look at Night Sentinel strength. Those thrown into the Colosseum with Doom Guy receive their fair share of abuse, but so does the Doom Marine. Able to survive hits from Doom Guy, this would imply that the Night Sentinel physiology is more sturdy than that of a human's. And on top of this, the Night Sentinels are also dishing out hits to Doom Guy that they claim make him mortally wounded, but he survives anyhow. Being able to mortally wound the Doom Guy, or at least cause wounds that would be considered as such, would also imply that the Night Sentinels are capable of strength not seen on Earth. And this is actually to be expected. First, the Night Sentinels are a warrior society. They pledge allegiance to their king and are bred for battle, at least the soldiers that choose to fight, as there are civilians. In fact, another example of their strength and allegiance is when the Night Sentinels are actually trapped in Hell by the Makers. They end up fighting to the last man, that being the Doomslayer, but even with handheld spears Marauders, they're able to take out many demons, something that humans with boomsticks do not seem to be really all that capable of. Plus, if the Betrayer is anything to go off of, then the Night Sentinel physiology is basically being an absolute beast. So why the history lesson of the Night Sentinels? Because the Marauders are nothing more than corrupted Night Sentinels. Those that sided with the Khan Maker would be resurrected as the Marauder, and not only wield the strength their species naturally possesses, but also the strength the Argent energy and demonization the Argent energy brings on, which we have seen in other species who are altered by this. The sturdiness of the Night Sentinel species also should be noted by how they are changed with the introduction of Argent energy as compared to humans changed. Soldiers changed by Argent energy concerning Homo sapiens are relatively weak, only being mildly stronger than their original origins. To the Doomslayer, these soldiers are easily brought down and destroyed, so really they're more just basically ammo pinatas than anything. But the Night Sentinels are something to be much more respected in the battlefield. Apart from their natural strength and physiology as well as those attributes demonic in nature, the Marauder also has the ability and tools at its disposal that humans just don't. Possessing a super boomstick, this is capable of doing damage to the Night Sentinel armor as we have seen. It will wield this readily, and should anyone get close, it can cause devastating damage. The Marauder also has an axe made out of the same energy as the Doomslayer's crucible, the same crucible that is able to cut through the toughest demons like butter and destroy the icon of sin with a single hit to the brain. This axe that the Marauder has can also be thrown with energy leaving its hand. This energy slices through the air, causing a fair amount of damage to anyone that is caught in its path, but should you get close, it can also swing this axe, embedding it into your body, but more than likely just straight cutting you in half if you don't have any armor on. The offensive capability is great concerning the Marauder, but its dodge ability is otherworldly. To our perception, and to the Doomslayer's perception, the movement of a Marauder is hard to keep track of. Possessing its own boost kit, it is able to move across the battlefield in a blur. A fraction of a second is all it takes to move left or right by a good 20 feet, and this would make hitting the Marauder extremely tough. But let's say you did get a shot off, it still isn't guaranteed to do damage, because much like the hard light shields that humans use, the Marauder has an Argent energy hard light shield of its own. Completely blocking incoming projectiles, this shield can be raised at a moment's notice and stop anything from lead to concussive force to plasma energy. But the same energy has another purpose as well. Let's say all these defenses are bypassed, and let's say you get a hit in. Even then, the Marauder is able to survive wounds and hits due to Argent energy coursing through its body that normally would take out other Night Sentinels. Another advantage that the Marauder has is also the ability to spawn corrupted wolves. Before Argent took hold, wolves were said to appear to all those that were worthy. These spirit wolves would lead a Night Sentinel to a desired object. However, after the Argent took hold, these spirit wolves can now be spawned in to do the will of the Marauder. These wolves do very real damage to enemies of the Marauder, but this also makes it a two-front attack. All of this gives the Marauder a massive combat advantage not normally seen in humans, or even in other Night Sentinels.
So, I know some of you are probably going to hate me for this, but as ridiculously strong as Chief may be in, like, almost every way imaginable, he's no Doomslayer. There are some weaknesses that could be exploited by the Marauder. Firstly, an obvious one, which might gloss over you at first. Chief is a human, and the Marauder is not. You've got to remember, right, the Marauder is essentially a corrupted, resurrected, undead Night Sentinel. And the Night Sentinels weren't human, they followed a different evolutionary path, so if you strip away the armor, and arguably all the augmentations as well, Chief is far weaker in comparison. His energy shields as well are also pretty weak, especially to plasma or any source of extreme heat. And it just so happens that the Marauder can launch a beam of extremely hot Argent energy, which, as far as we know, functions pretty similar to plasma in the Halo universe, which would almost certainly melt directly through his shields, and regardless of the several refractive coatings on his armor, his undersuit, and his skin suit, would also melt through those as well. I mean, Linda's Mjolnir, when she was wearing Mark V, was burnt straight through, and she was almost killed by just a few shots of a plasma pistol. So this Argent energy blast would almost certainly wound Chief. That is, if it were to hit him. Another thing related to his shields is that if they were to drop, I would hazard a guess that his Mjolnir could not withstand a swing or two from the Marauder's axe. Now, we can assume that the blades on this battle axe are made from a sort of like solid argent energy, the same sort of energy that creates the blade on the Crucible, which is extremely sharp, which functions, I think, a little bit like hard light or the plasma from an energy sword in the Halo universe. And so, it would slice directly through his plating just like an energy sword can, opening Chief up to the possibility of impalement and even dismemberment, something that biofoam will do jack shit to stop. The final weakness that I can think of, and trust me, coming up with weaknesses for Chief has been very, very difficult. The final one that I can think of might take you by surprise. Chief's strength. Now, don't get me wrong, Chief is strong. Very, very strong. There's no doubt there. But the Marauder is capable of killing the bloody Doomslayer with melee. If he can kill the Doomslayer, a literal demigod, then, with respect, Chief stands no chance, so CQC, for once, is not his friend in this battle. And they are the only weaknesses for Chief that I can quite honestly think of. There might be some more, but as far as I'm aware, there's very little about Chief that's weak. But don't worry, Mr. 117 isn't the only one in this battle with a small bag of weaknesses. Let me hand you back over to Roanoke to discuss the not so great things about the Marauder.
With Chief fleshed out, you can actually see that concerning strengths there are a lot of similarities, but with strength comes weakness as well. The Marauder is far from invincible. Resistance in no way means immune. First, concerning weakness, the Marauder has exposed pieces of its body. The armor, interestingly, does not actually cover internal organs all that well. Now, concerning the digestive tract and aortas of the Night Sentinels, it's not something referenced within the universe, so it would be impossible to know about its physiology, but if it exists, then it would definitely be in this exposed area. Because of the lack of armor, the Marauder would be hit in these areas, leading to its own downfall. These holes become more of an issue when you realize that the Marauder is also capable of being injured by conventional boomsticks. The Doomslayer can use a multitude of boomsticks, ranging from highly concussive force to just more of the same. To use the super boomstick to the plasma handheld means that all of these are viable options when facing off against the Marauder, and after the Marauder attacks with an axe, it becomes extremely vulnerable to these counterattacks. And speaking of this vulnerable period, one of the largest weaknesses the Marauder would have is that its enemy has something known as Spartan time. Hidden has already covered this, but let's just say Chief would have no problem keeping up with the movements of the Marauder. And lastly, the Marauder is still very much so capable of being damaged. With enough force and strength, a Marauder's bones can be broken, its limbs can be ripped off, its head destroyed, its skin torn. They are not immortal. Therefore, with enough training and quick reaction time, uncorrupted beings can overcome this Marauder. When facing off against the Doomslayer, we see just how vulnerable the Marauder is to sheer power and tactics. But the Chief is not the Doomslayer, and as such, he possesses his own set of weaknesses.
Right, so now you know the ins and outs of both of our contenders, it's time for the main event. Chief has just begun the data transfer of Mendicant Bias, and the Marauder has just left the portal to fulfill the Khanmaker's orders. Chief knows that failure to protect Mendicant Bias will damn humanity to eternal torment, and the Marauder knows that failing the Maker is simply not an option. After the Marauder gives his cute little speech calling Chief a usurper and all that jazz, immediately Chief fires on him with his assault rifle, but the Marauder quickly raises its Argent shield, blocking the shots and deflecting them back at Chief. Believing it now has the upper hand, it dashes towards Chief to go in for a fatal super shotgun blast. But, thanks to Spartan time, Chief quickly dodges before the Marauder can even pull the trigger. Given how easily the forces of hell have managed to conquer Earth so far, this actually takes the Marauder by surprise a little bit. It wasn't aware that anything humanity could offer was this capable in combat, but nevertheless, it doesn't let up. To try and take the Spartan by surprise, it summons one of its spirit wolves, but much to its surprise, Chief takes it out with ease. Not only was it constantly being detected by his motion tracker, but as soon as it appeared, Cortana placed a nav point over its head, so Chief always knew where it was and from what direction it would attack. However, to try and exploit the fact that Chief was so focused on that first wolf, the Marauder immediately spawns another, which manages to successfully pounce on the Spartan, but is instantly destroyed by the electric charge created when it came into contact with his shields. Think infection form. With his shield is now at half charge, the Marauder fires a blast of shotgun at Chief, knocking his shields out entirely, and evening out the fight to one of just armor plating versus armor plating, both of which are relatively similar in composition. With the two now equally matched, at least in their defenses, Chief begins strafing, doing so at a much faster speed than the Marauder can even think of doing thanks to his augmentations, and landing burst after burst of his BR on the demon. But to counterattack, it dashes back and rapidly fires a beam of energy, which strikes Chief's center mass and severely, but not critically, damages his chest plate. Thankfully though, the bypass nodes in the armor kick in, and all the internal systems continue to function normally despite the damage. As the two continue to trade missed shots and lunges, Chief's shields begin to recharge despite the damage caused to his armor plating, and he capitalizes on it. Cortana begins to plot the predicted movement of the Marauder, and Chief tosses a frag grenade where they expect it to dash next, and lo and behold, it does, further proving Chief's perception can actually improve somehow thanks to Cortana. Dashing directly into the frag grenade as it explodes, the Marauder is knocked back and stunned for a brief moment, but it doesn't stop there. To give itself time to recover, it summons yet another wolf. But by dual-wielding two SMGs, Chief manages to take out the wolf and also unleash sustained bullet hose fire on the Marauder simultaneously. Now don't worry, I can hear you. How is Chief finding all these weapons very conveniently, you ask? Why, luck, of course! Now ask nothing more of it. The Marauder once again raises his shield to block the ballistics, and so Chief ditches the small arms fire for something more useful. Plasma weaponry, dropped by the Ark security, who promptly dropped their weapons and ran in fear when they saw the portal open. He unleashes a barrage of superheated plasma on the Marauder, whose shield is still raised, but with every second of fire the shield becomes heavier. So eventually it has to drop it and quickly tries to dash towards Chief, actually managing to land a hit with its battle axe on Chief's neck, of which he was too distracted by trying to figure out how to vent the now overheated rifle to dodge. But thankfully, very thankfully indeed, thanks to his energy shields, the axe simply bounces off, allowing the Spartan to land even more hits, but this time on the exposed flesh of the Marauder. Now, because the demon is a demon from literal hell, the heat aspect of the plasma does next to nothing, it doesn't even feel it. But the constant impact of every single bolt starts to break the flesh and weaken the bones of the Marauder, dealing abdominal damage that really weakens it. However, on the other side of the battle, the energy beam that hit Chief in the chest earlier on actually did more damage than initially detected. His biofoam injectors kicked in immediately, so he couldn't feel anything, but Cortana detected relatively severe internal bleeding as a consequence of the impact. It's nothing biofoam can't solve, but it'll take some time, so his movement becomes ever so slightly more laboured. That said though, despite the fact that it is now laboured, it's still vastly superior to the Marauder, who is now suffering from far graver wounds, making it much slower than it was before. Chief realises that this is his chance, and so he goes in for an assassination on the demon. At first, it uses its immense Night Sentinel-born strength to try and resist the Spartan, and it manages for a short while, but as it begins to tire, Chief remains equally strong, eventually able to overpower it thanks to its weakened state. 117's metal liquid crystal layer kicks in, amplifying his incredible strength, and allowing him to quite literally beat the ever-demonic shit out of the Marauder's face, snapping its horns and pretty much knocking it unconscious before reaching around to his back, unsheathing his combat knife, and driving it directly through the Marauder's skull, killing the demon and ensuring Mendicant Bias remains safely under humanity's control. And so, the victor of today's demon versus demon battle, see what I did there, is Halo's very own Spartan 117, the Master Chief. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this was a super close battle to judge, and I think me and Roanoke can both agree it was probably the hardest one that we've had to judge yet, but that said, we both really believe that Chief would have the upper hand, but only just. What it comes down to primarily are his reflexes and perception. I mean, they are both insane without any further enhancements, but when you throw his Mjolnir and Cortana into the mix, I mean, they are just on another level, and I think Spartan Time is really the perfect proof of that. I mean, when you can react in slow motion, very, very little is ever going to be able to hit you. In fact, thinking back, I think we were probably being a bit too generous saying that the Marauder could land a shotgun blast, an energy shot, an axe hit, and a wolf bite. I mean, obviously no soldier is perfect, not even Chief, but allowing him to be hit 4 times really was like a worst case scenario type thing. Then, when you throw in the extreme resilience and sustain provided by his armor, something the Marauder totally lacks in fact, it starts to become even more obvious that Chief would come out on top if you ask me. Don't get me wrong, the Marauder is an extremely strong and capable warrior, there's no doubt there, but its strengths are outmatched and countered almost entirely by Chief. Its Night Sentinel strength is like the only real upper hand that it has over Chief, but as this fight proved, Chief's perceptive abilities and speed allow him to just avoid CQC entirely until he's weakened the Marauder enough to be able to overpower it. And to be quite honest, now that I'm thinking about it, I can't see like any situation where the Marauder would be able to utilize this strength. I mean, motion trackers plus Cortana plus inhuman reaction time and perception make it practically impossible for the Marauder to even get the jump on him, so as strong as it is, I actually don't think it would ever be able to put this strength into practice. And so, with all of that reasoning behind us now, I feel like we can quite comfortably say that Chief would beat the shit out of a Marauder. And I think that's all we need to say today. I think that kind of rounds it up quite nicely. Thank you so much to my boy Roanoke, as per usual, for joining me with this video. Making one of this magnitude would be quite simply impossible without him, so please make sure you go and check out his channel, go and drop a subscribe, a like on his video, and all that good stuff. The link is at the top of the description. Massive thank you to all of my amazing patrons for the continued support over there, as per usual, and thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in the next one.